morning.
Good morning.
Turn on my mic here. Call the meeting to order for the Economic Growth Infrastructure Committee at 9:37. Or is that, oh, I'm sorry, 32. Sorry. A little earlier. First call of business, we'll do the roll call.
Jackson?
Here.
Spiz?
Here.
Markham?
Here.
Powell?
Here.
Wiper?
Here.
Miller?
Here. We have a quorum. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next order of business is the approval of minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes from previous meeting? Hearing none, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Markham,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Wiper. Any discussion? Here, no discussion. Do a motion by yea or nays, voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, now the next is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda or corrections?
I'll move the agenda is presented.
All right, Commissioner Spiz moved it and Commissioner Jackson seconded. All right, so we, I'll do a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Next order of business is public comment. Do we have anybody from the public here? Seeing none? All right, we'll close the public comment and now go to communications. We have no communications today. All right, so now we'll move to the regular agenda. Let's see, so we need a motion for the first item of the agenda. The Department of Infrastructure, Technology, and Water Resource Commissioners accepting a donation from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Service.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Spiz, seconded by Commissioner Markham. Is there any questions? Or any further discussion, I should say?
Good morning.
Morning.
Tammy Shepard, Manager of Information Technology and Application Services.
And I'm John Batch with the Oakland County Water Resources Commissioner's Office.
All right. So I thought I would take just a moment so you know what the gift is that you're accepting in case you're not familiar with LIDAR. Some of you may be, but maybe not. So LIDAR is an acronym, of course, for Light Detection and Ranging. And it's basically a method where they put a type of sensor in a plane. Again, I'm the girl with the planes and the cool technology that makes maps, right? So they put a sensor in a plane, they fly over the county, but this time they send light pulses down to the earth, and they have a way to determine basically the distance based on the time. So you send down a light pulse, it comes back. That tells you how far down it is. That gives you a surface of the earth that tells you how high or low. And then it also has a signature, so it can tell if it's dirt or water or pavement or a structure of some sort. So it builds what's called a point cloud. And then we have sort of attributes or information on each of those points, and we can pull information out of it to develop things like a digital elevation model. That tells us what the slope of the ground is, which is a lot of what the Water Resources Commissioner uses this product for. We actually develop things called contours. So every foot of the earth, we can say what the elevation is at that increment. So every 12 inches, we can say, you know, at this point, we're at the digital elevation, we're at the elevation of 652 feet. Here, we're at the digital elevation of 651 feet. And it lets us determine the slope of the ground, which then helps WRC and others determine how water may flow. that helps them determine how much water may be flowing over an area. They use it for things like their apportionment of drains. We also use it in our Parks Department, this product, to determine where trails may be placed for higher or lower. If people like to, mountain bike, they maybe want to climb hills, things like that. So it's used in a variety of ways across the county. And then it's also used when we do fly those aerial photos, which I talked about last time I was here. It actually helps us kind of drape those photos over a model of our Earth so that they're placed in exactly the right spot. So, and this is a huge foundational product for our geographic information systems, which as time goes on, those of you who are new, you'll hear more and more about, but it's basically our computerized mapping for the county that lets us map pretty much every feature you can think of to map. We're mapping that, layering it, and doing analysis to find relationships between different types of features on the Earth. So this is a critical component of kind of our baseline. And this project was actually a great example of how we collaborate at the state and federal level. We partnered with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the state to cost share the collection of this data. It's a pretty expensive data set to collect. And one of our partners, when it came time for us to contribute our share of the money, they let us know that they actually had enough money that we don't have to give in our $45,000 or so that we had planned on sharing into the cost of this. So I'm here to request that you approve the acceptance of this gift to the county.
Thank you. I'll open up for any discussion.
Just that it's
Yeah.
great, right?
Sure, I've
It was gonna cost, and all of a sudden, it's so,
I come bearing gifts.
right?
Remember that next time.
I just wanted to make a statement. We wanted to formalize, they let us know that we wouldn't have to make our contribution. We asked for something in writing from them so that we could formally accept that, so that they wouldn't come back later and said, oh, by the way, you need to pay this agreement if someone new came in.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'm not sure if I asked this question on this subject. Are we gonna look at drones in the future for doing this?
The Facilities Management Division actually has a drone that they're using to collect information like they do analysis on roofs to see if there's any quality issues up there from or any shingles popping up, things like that. We've done some marketing with some drones in the Parks Department, so we are doing some looking. I think maybe there's some public safety angles that are also happening over in the Sheriff's Department. So we are doing some work with drones. It does require federal safety, aviation
Right.
requirements, things like that. So our division hasn't really dug into that too much, but we do have a long list of things that we would do with that, given the approval and time to sort of go into the getting authorized and all of that from
Oh,
our side.
Oh, most definitely. I'm going for my drone license now, like studying for it, went through some courses and stuff, so that's why I asked.
Yes, yeah.
It's kind of
Great
exciting,
technology.
yeah.
Yeah, it helps you collect, especially in emergency services. If there were a tornado, you can go fly that.
Oh, definitely.
Get up to the minute imagery to see where damage is. It's very valuable.
Definitely. All right, any more discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Jackson,
Yes.
Spiz,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Howell,
Yes.
Wyberg,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we have our second item on the agenda, which is the Water Resource Commissioner transfer of assessment of certain county interests and easements and right-of-ways of the sanitary sewer system located within the city of Novi. And, we have we need a motion.
So moved.
It's been motioned by Markham, supported by Wiper. Welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
Tim Prince, Chief Manager for Water Resource Commissioner, and with me is Kelsey Cook, Senior Attorney for Water Resource Commissioner. So this is really a follow-up on the water and sewer contracts that we've been bringing to the board. We're updating all of our dilapidated water and sewer contracts that the communities that we operate and maintain. Our office operates and maintains a number of water and sewer contracts. So part of that process is not only the agreements, but we're also looking at property insurance. We're also looking at public officials and liability insurance. And we're also looking at, is there any property that's still in the county's name that needs to be transferred back to the community? So this is sort of the last step in that process for the Walled Lake contracts and the Novi contract. So with that, Kelsey, if you have any more
Sure,
details.
I'll just add, so this is for the city of Novi, it's sanitary sewer system assets that were originally easements that were taken out in the name of the county because they were financed through county bonds. So, and they were to install the sanitary sewer system pipes. So at this point, bonds have been repaid, and so the assets are free and clear to transfer back to the city where they're located. So that's what we're asking for today.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? I just have a question. Will this cost the county anything going forward after it's transferred?
No, so it's just easements and right-of-way that will go
Right.
back to the city of Novi, so then the city of Novi will take on the responsibility for them. We do operate and maintain a portion of Novi's sanitary sewer system, so they may fall under that, our operation of it, but there's no cost involved.
That's what I was just wondering, 'cause I know there's some parts that we still have, and, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, call the roll?
Spiz,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Wyper,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. So now we have our third item on the agenda, which is the transfer and assessments of certain county interest and easements in the right-of-ways of the water supply system and sanitary sewer system located in the city of Walled Lake. It's been motioned by Spiz, seconded by Commissioner Jackson.
So this is just like the last agenda item, only this is for the city of Walled Lake, and this transfer involves water supply system assets as well as the sanitary sewer system assets. So again, they're just improvements that were made in the name of the county with county financed bonds. The bonds have now been repaid, so we're transferring the assets that are located in the city of Walled Lake back to the city of Walled Lake.
Excellent. Any discussion? No discussion? Call the roll?
Markham,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Wyper,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Spiz,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming. All right, so now we have a presentation by Economic Development and Community Affairs. It's Finance and Economic Development Corporation.
Good morning.
Morning.
Dan Hunter, Deputy Director with Economic Development, and Kathy Rassigan, Administrator of our Business Finance Unit. Well, I don't know if I'm bearing gifts, like agenda item number 1, but,
I mean, you are the last one on the agenda. I mean, we gotta have something here, right?
but we are, in a way, we're talking about some financing programs that really want you to know about, so that as you're talking to businesses in your areas, and they talk about financing in any way, shape, or form, we would be happy to help them out. We have 3 programs here that Kathy's going to talk about, but even if they didn't meet the criteria for the programs, we would love to talk to them, maybe do business counseling through our one-stop shop, and see if we can help them out. Any size, any shape. We're happy to help them out. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, and I'll hand out a copy of the PowerPoint slides for each of you.
Hello, and when we came as the EDCA, we did like a brief overview of it. So this will get a little bit more into the nooks and crannies of the 2 main programs that we administer, which are the BFC, the Business Finance Corp, and the Oakland County EDC. So the first one, and this is really the most active of our 2 programs, is Oakland County Business Finance. And this was established about, in 1981 to administer a federal loan program called the SBA 504, which is a fixed asset financing. Originally, the SBA set up groups like ours called CDCs, or Certified Development Company, to really push the program and do the administration of it on a ground level, but everything we do is eventually approved by the feds, the SBA. And also originally, we were set up by county, but about 15 years ago, the SBA opened the doors and said, we want to make sure that all states are adequately served so every development company can serve their entire state of Michigan. Our team is 5 of us, so there's me, and then we have Joan Kuhn, who handles our portfolio servicing. We service these loans for their life, which can be 10, 20, or 25 years. We have loan officers, Bill Zaglanichny, who's actually on the county paternity leave right now, and Kevin Condon, and then our newest addition is Aubrey Cadieux, and she does our loan closings. So the BFC last year, which is in that annual report, we approved 16 new projects for just over $36 million. And then the funding of them, when they're actually done, closed, and on our books, we funded 18 for about $27 million. And overall, that created and retained 600 jobs. What can we finance with the 504, or who do we help? For-profit businesses, so really just no not-for-profits, engaged in manufacturing, retail, wholesale, distribution, service, and construction. Service includes things like restaurants, hotels, doctors, CPAs, those type of things. It all falls under that generalized umbrella of service. And what we can do for them is land, any improvements that need to be done to that land, or we have one right now that actually has to have a building demoed off of it before the new construction can happen. New construction of a building, acquisition of an existing, they can work in there some renovation costs, machinery and equipment, both new and used, professional fees associated with a project. When you're buying commercial property, there's appraisals, environmental surveys, a lot of little things that begin to add up. So probably on average, this costs companies around $10,000. They can wrap it into their financing, which is a big help, keeps more money in their pockets. We can do interest, fees, and points. And then the newest feature is refinancing of existing fixed asset debt. Typical structure, we have a picture of a Culver's up there. We've done a couple of Culver's restaurants. But the total project, you take it, let's say $2 million. Culver's actually run a bit more than that. But of that $2 million, in the end, this company has a loan to their bank or credit union for 50% of total project costs. The SBA via us comes in and does 40%, and it shrinks their equity down to 10%. If you're doing conventional or straight bank financing, typically you're putting in 20%, sometimes 25% down. So the biggest selling feature of the SBA is that it keeps more money in operations in your pocket and reduces that down payment. So even on $1 million building, the difference is $100,000 down versus $200,000, and that can be pretty dramatic. There are some times where you have a special purpose or a startup company. Those might require additional equity because they're riskier. Special purposes include bowling alleys, golf course, which we do have one. We have a couple of assisted living facilities. Those are considered special purpose. They need more equity, 15%. And if you're a startup assisted living facility, then you're looking at putting 20% down. Again, it typically, though, is still more favorable than what a bank would want for a startup assisted living facility. So there is still good benefit there. On the SBA piece, let's say my 40% of the deal, again, it can be a 10, a 20, or a 25-year term. 25-year terms was just rolled out this year, and it's been very popular in the SBA world. If you're doing equipment only, and we do have several of those, typically they're large manufacturing pieces that go in, maybe a line. Those are typically 10 years, but if it can be proven that it has a 20-year asset life, typically a note from the manufacturer will verify that. We can go out 20 years on those. And when the company's rate is set on their SBA loan, it is fixed for that full 10, 20, or 25 years. They never have to renegotiate that SBA piece of the financing. Eligibility, the main one is that we only do owner-occupied commercial real estate. The SBA is not in the game for investment real estate where you're buying the building and collecting rents. They want to see a small business in there that's growing, that's adding to the job market, adding to the tax base. So if we're doing a new construction, the owner has to occupy 60% of the total square footage. If it's an existing building, that is reduced a little bit to just 51%, and then you can tenant out the remainder. And our project sizes range anywhere from 150,000 to about 13 million or higher. We financed Ultimate Soccer, which some of you might be familiar with in Pontiac. Actually, we financed two, their original and their expansion. So I think somewhere we were in the neighborhood of 8 or so million in total project that happened with SBA funding. And the 150,000, we have a deal up in Leonard that took advantage of it. That was a smaller one, smaller building, and knock on wood, they've been a great pay for 16 years. But the smaller project size a lot of times are smaller pieces of equipment. Things that a 504 can't finance would be working capital, taxes, especially outstanding taxes. Your helicopter, airplane, or drone, can't do those. Too hard to keep tabs on that collateral. Can't do bank fees on the end loan, and then counseling or finder fees, like there are some loan packagers out there. We can't finance loan packaging fees. We actually don't use them, but, and then franchise fees. We can do franchise locations. We had 2 Taco Bells approved at loan committee right before I came over here, but there are fees associated with doing franchising. That part we can't wrap into the mix. Collateral, we're fully subordinate to the bank in the collateral pool, which makes banks happy. You take $1 million building, they're out there 500,000, but they get the first mortgage position, so they're happy with that. But we look to see that there's an appraisal on the property for any project over 500,000, and then there is environmental due diligence required on all projects. This is getting stickier and stickier lately with DEQ rules, but we do have to have a clean environmental before we can go forward with funding. The federal government does not want to own land that's got any hiccups or problems. So the benefits to our companies are low down payment, which we talked about. When their SBA rate is set, it is fixed for the life of the loan, and they are low. I'll get into what current rate climate is. The long-term financing, 20 to 25 years at a fixed rate, banks really don't match that. And then extended terms on the bank portion. We make the bank go a certain length on their note to participate with the SBA, which can help that borrower out also. And this is an example. I did use this one earlier in Berkeley, and I don't know if we have a commissioner that is in that district. But this is a real nice company that purchased their building and had to do extensive renovations to it. So the building itself already existed, 550,000. Yep, renovations for 700. Real happy, nice owners. But total project was $1,251,000, and we partnered with Huntington Bank on this deal. And in the end, the bank loan is $625,601. The SBA loan, which again we closed, funded, and we take care of them for 20 years. Was just over $500,000, and their equity was 10%. This particular loan, their SBA piece, is 4.8% fixed for 20 years. So in a raising rate climate already, that can look very favorable. And we actually lend all of our fees, so we actually lend them $517,000 at that 4.8% for the 20 years. So a lot going on there that they could take advantage of, and again, very nice company, very happy owners.
The dogs look happy too.
And the dogs are happy too, and clean. They're clean too. I wanted just to call a little attention to the SBA's refinancing program. It went through 2 iterations of testing, and then finally now it is permanent. And what we can do is work with companies that are already in a commercial mortgage. They're at least 2 years into it. Or maybe their notes coming due with the bank, and we can get in there, help them refinance and extend those terms. So it has to be for fixed assets, building or equipment or combined. They do have to be current on all their payments, and this is actually something for the SBA as a whole. Way back when, the SBA was kind of considered last chance financing, but that's not the case anymore. These are thriving companies, startup, healthy companies. So the SBA is a real true lender, not last chance. The bank note does have to be at least 2 years old. If the property appraises high enough, they can do 100% financing where they're refining the whole thing without any new cash out of their pocket. Does have to be fully secured, so we still take a lien on what we're financing. The main hiccup right now is we cannot refinance any federal or SBA debt. This is probably the main call we get. There are some other SBA programs out there, but we can't help refi them out of a variable 7A loan. And they still have to meet those occupancy standards. So a sample of this is actually a company called Johnstone Supply, who we have done, I want to say 10 loans with now. They can come back and do multiples. They have SBA limitations of $5 million, but they can come back till they hit that. So he had a building, I can't remember if this is a Saginaw or Romulus building off the top of my head, but he had $311,000 outstanding with the bank. His balance was coming due. His appraisal was $390,000, so you can see he had more than enough equity in there to refi that whole $311,000 without having to put any more money down. And now, for the SBA piece of $155,000, he never has to touch it. He just sits and rides that out, never has to do anything to it except pay us. Rates for March are 4.75% for 25 years, 4.59% for 20, and then 4.63 for 10-year loans. The refinance rate, you add a little smidge on top of that. But bank rates can be 5 3/4 right now, in some cases even higher than that. So again, you can see how favorable that rate is on the SBA piece. Then just to switch gears a little bit, we have the secondary program, which is the Economic Development Corporation of Oakland County. This has been around since 1981, but put in place from Michigan Public Act 338 way back in the 70s, gave us the ability to do these. And what the EDC does is administer industrial revenue bonds and actually issues them. In 2018, we helped the Detroit Skating Club in Bloomfield Hills. With the Bank of Ann Arbor, it was just over a $4 million project. And we also had a refinanced bond for $14.7 million for Rochester College. These two happen to be not-for-profits and created and retained 180 jobs in 2018. The scope of the EDC is significantly smaller. The pot of companies we can help. Number one, they have to be in Oakland County. Number two, they have to be either manufacturing or a 501c3 not-for-profit, so that's it. Business sizes have a $10 million cap expenditure limit over the 6 years, but that doesn't apply to nonprofits, so they can do a little bit more. There are a few communities in Oakland County that have their own EDCs, and if there's an active EDC in that community, we defer to them. Although there have been times where we've partnered up with that community, there is a lot of legal work that goes on with these. And so sometimes if you're a smaller EDC, that partnership makes a big difference. What the EDC can finance is very similar, though, to the other program: land, improvements, building construction, acquisition and renovation, machinery and equipment, and then the related soft costs. So very similar to the other. For the eligible costs, no more than 25% of the proceeds can be used just for land or other facilities that are ancillary. If you're buying a used manufacturing facility, there is a rehab requirement. You have to rehab it to the tune of 15% of the cost of that existing facility. And then used equipment would have the same rules. So that's really economic development driven, investment driven, with all of these rules.
And the rules are really promulgated under federal tax code. So that they don't want to use the program for somebody just buying a building and not doing any rehabilitation to it. So the 15% comes from the federal side, and that's part of the heavy legal analysis. We have bond counsel, And so they really look to determine eligibility and meeting all those things that are required under federal tax code.
And our bond counsel is with Dickinson Wright, Robert Schwartz, and he's been the EDC's bond counsel for decades. So very, very knowledgeable about the topic. The advantages to the end user are very attractive interest rates, and that could be, Bob closed one 2 months ago for a manufacturing company at about 2.5%. So that's extremely favorable. They can do up to 100% financing, and they can include needs over a 3-year period. Right now, the rate climate in the world has been very competitive, so the bulk of what the EDC has seen is not-for-profits and refinancings. As rates climb up, you might see the EDC get a little more active because banks might tighten up a little bit, and they want some extra incentives in there. Incentive is probably the wrong word, but partners in there. So this is a manufacturing company we did a few years back in Madison Heights, Trinex Inc., $2.85 million, and this was done with Comerica Bank, very nice facility. I believe they've been acquired since then, but again, we've done mostly non-for-profit, so I wanted to try to find a manufacturer to show you.
Don't they build like snow blowers or something along those lines?
Something yellow.
Looks like John Deere.
Yeah, And then lastly, we wanted to mention, this is more of a microloan program where we have a partnership with a company called Seed Lending. Since 2009, the EDC has granted money to Seed to administer their microloan program. In that 8-year partnership, it's resulted in a little over $1 million to small business loans. That average loan size is $19,500. So definitely micro. They are a lot of work to do. Belinda is our contact, and she actually sits in our office 1 to 2 days a week and helps put on seminars. But it's an excellent partnership in a lot of ways. So finance works closely with the EDCA group of business development. They're out there on the ground meeting companies. They're promoting the things we have. We work well with our one-stop business counseling. They're seeing people, they need financing, and there's a lot of, I might pronounce this wrong, but reciprocating, let's say it that way, between all of our groups. And Seed is another big feature of that. Somebody calls me, I can't really help them with a $30,000 loan to buy some inventory. Seed can come in and work with them for that. And they've also done 151 jobs retained and 142 created through this partnership. Oh, that's it. That was the end of the show.
So the one that will come before you is when we have a project under the EDC. And in comparison, well, as Kathy indicated, we had 2 EDC projects last year. And on the business finance, we had 16 or 18. So they don't come along that often, but they would come before you and then have public hearing over at the full board. So, I mean, it's a lot of information, but if somebody you know is looking for financing, we'd love to talk to them.
You don't hear that every day.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you for that presentation.
Sure.
And I just want to share something about the commissioners and the partnership that we've had with economic development and looking out for the seed dollars. And I appreciate you coming in the past. And I think it's time maybe to take the show on the road again. As far as you mentioned, Ms. Dubois, Belinda Dubois.
Yes.
She's coming to the community of Southfield several times at my request to talk to small business owners and startups and people that really needed help just hanging their shingle. The seed financing, I know in past years it may not have been utilized fully. That's what I hear. The money's there. It kind of sits there. How could we help, other than that, bringing that show on the road and helping to promote to the small businesses that this money is here and available to get them, help get them started? Because I know it's not just the financing. It's also your relationship with SCORE and helping them to construct their business plans and I think it's time again to like be very active
Yep.
with that work.
We're happy to go on the road anywhere, anytime, to talk to chamber groups, community groups, as it pertains to financing, anywhere, anytime. But having you aware is really the first step in that process. Belinda, who, as Kathy said, is in our office a day and a half a week, she's just great to work with. They've actually loaned a fair amount of that money out. The nice thing about the Oakland County money is that it leverages other funds from the SBA. And so their pot of dollars for these small working capital loans is actually fairly significant. So as Kathy said, we'll work internally with our business counseling team, with Belinda, with Kathy, or sometimes it's other SBA or state of Michigan products in the financing world. That's our business, is to know and to be an ambassador for the business, to help them. Because if we can, that's job retention, that's job creation, that's growth.
And second question, I know we define small business as something that's not really small. You know, C kind of speaks more to entrepreneurship.
Right.
Small business, what's the definition again? It's a number
Yeah.
of employees, almost $1 million. What is that definition?
I don't know it off the top of my head,
not
but
small.
we actually say small to medium-sized businesses, but you're right, it's a calculation of the employees that they have. For some reason, the number of 50 is sticking in my head, but that wouldn't be medium-sized, that would be more small, but we can find that out for you, just to let you know. And actually, the SBA 504 program, so what we consider small to medium size is that they have a tangible net worth of under 15 million. So you're right, that encompasses a lot, and that's a federal reg. So that is a lot of business types. We don't really regulate what their revenues can be. We have some in our portfolio that do 100,000 in revenues, and then we have some large companies that are up to 50 million in revenue. And what they bring to the bottom line just has to be a net profit after tax, 2-year average of under 5 million. So exactly what you're saying, Commissioner, what is considered small to medium size is really 15 million in net worth is a pretty large company.
Yes. So, and one last question. The 504 program, what's the beginning amount of loan? Is it 125,000?
150,000. Yep, by regulation, it's actually a little bit smaller than that. However, we have found that when you start to take into account SBA fees, your comparison of 20% down conventional bank versus 10% SBA becomes a little too watered down to where it might not make the most sense. So 150,000 is typically the smaller end.
Questions, Commissioner Spiz?
Would it be possible to send this out electronically?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Makes it easier to share that way.
Yeah.
Yep, we'll send that to Connie, and then she can forward that to everybody.
Awesome, thank you.
And then the other thing that Kathy, she didn't really have it in her slide, but this is a regional program. There's only 3 or 4 entities like this in the state of Michigan. And so we're able to go outside of Oakland County, and usually it's a referral that comes in from a banker that's looking for a little protection on a loan. So we tend to stay generally with our adjacent counties because the staff person does need to go and visit and meet and work with the business owner. But what about 20% of the loans that we do are outside of Oakland County? That brings to mind one of our largest deals about 4 years ago was in Detroit. And it was with a company that I can't remember their name.
Verndale Products.
Verndale Products. They make powdered milk, and their customer is GR Deli. And it's a family-owned business, and they took an old Dairy Fresh milk processing plant that had been closed for years. And our end of the deal was machinery and equipment. Very sophisticated machinery and equipment to manufacture this high-level quality milk powder. I don't think we got to taste any samples either.
I did. I got to taste some.
We've done a number in Detroit, and that's a really interesting feature that we're able, most of them are in Oakland County, from one end of the county to the other. You'll drive by on Telegraph all the time, Bronx Deli. That was one of our projects a few years ago. Ultimate Soccer in Pontiac. It's, from our standpoint, it's really fun because we get to see these businesses most times grow and prosper and really benefit by saving some of that cash in their own business. So.
Commissioner Wiper?
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up on that, because you mentioned the one where the building was either Romulus or Saginaw.
Yeah.
So that,
Yep, so that was about 15 years ago where the SBA opened the territories because they want to make sure everybody has access to financing. And they were seeing, not just in Michigan, but across the country, a lot of underserved areas. And so by opening up that territory, they task us with making sure that we're promoting this program out there and the access to financing.
so is the word out that our business?
Yeah,
county
yep.
Is the place?
Yeah, the word is out. It was mentioned in Mr. Patterson's State of the County address this year. How many we have helped in other counties, probably the largest is Macomb. For a time, we were one of the CDCs that had done the most in the city of Detroit. And those are, like Dan said, those are all very good things. We started here, we're homegrown, we're still Oakland County, but we are helping the growth of the entire state of Michigan.
One last, on that one, you said you helped them several times,
Yeah,
but you also said you can't refinance SB.
right. So he has multiple locations, and we've been able to do financing on 10 of those locations. I want to, maybe about 3 of them are in Oakland County, 2 are in Macomb, 1 in Washtenaw, and then I'm not sure what, Romulus is Wayne, but I'm not sure what Saginaw, if that's Saginaw County. So you can come back and get multiple 504 loans. You eventually hit a cap of SBA exposure of $5 million, but until you hit that cap, you can do as many loans as you want.
Thank you.
Commissioner Markham?
Yeah, excuse me, thank you very much. I had a couple of questions. One is where you talked about environmental due diligence.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a little
Sure.
bit, what that means?
If you're, the SBA requires environmental due diligence, most banks do too, but for us, doesn't matter the size of your project, you're gonna have some environmental study done. If you were pristine land, including never an apple orchard, you can start with the lowest level, which is called an environmental risk review, or used to be called a transaction screen report. You can start with that. But a lot of your companies that are manufacturing, you're gonna start at least with a phase 1. And if anything comes back that's a REC, recognized environmental condition, you are gonna have to have more study done. And so when I kind of segued a little bit into that can become an issue, if you have a project that's in an older industrial community, there are issues now with vapor that has to do with the DEQ that can prolong some of that going out there. But
All right, the other question that I had, you mentioned that some communities have their own EDC.
Yes.
Which communities in Oakland County
sure,
typically have their own?
it's Farmington or
Team up on
Farmington
this.
Hills.
Farmington Hills.
Waterford Township, although I'm not sure how active they still are. I believe Southfield.
Maybe Auburn Hills, but I know they have sent projects to us because they just don't meet. Novi had one, but I think in the process of maybe winding it down because they're, we serve that function whenever a project might come.
And there's not a lot of activity, and I think they really went, during the recession, there was almost none. And so then things really went quiet, and to support it becomes then kind of costly.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I had that same, but I think South Lyon even had a.
It had one?
Old EDC, but there's no way that they can do the scale you can do.
Oh,
Is that-
thank you.
Is that
But
what you found?
Yep, and there is still local community involvement. So any EDC project is still by statute required to get the community on board, and we do attend that community's board meetings to get approval on the project plan.
discussion? All right, need a motion to receive and file the documents. Motion by Commissioner Jackson, supported by Commissioner Spiz.
Yeah.
A voice vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
your time. It's not free money, but it is a nice service to your constituents, so.
It's a gift.
Yes.
We'll take it as a gift.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming.
Thank you. I have one other, I'll just pass these around. This is put on by our Workforce Development Division, and it's Money Smart Week, where there are a lot of sessions to help people understand money and mortgages, and it's through our Michigan Works, our Oakland County Michigan Works. Some of the presenters come from our Community and Home Improvement Division. There's more of these if you need them, but I just wanted, it's timely. It's next week, March 30th to April 5th, or 2 weeks from now. Electronic, I'll get them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other business? So we'll call for adjournment. And declare this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.